Burlington. This is so lovely. Thank you all so much for being here. I wanted to film my special here because I had been to Burlington one time. I loved the vibe so much. Everybody just seems like they have just enough money to enjoy winter. And that's beautiful. I live in New York, and I love public transportation. Right? For all the penises I've seen, I still love it. I do. You know why? Because I'm a really insecure person, like especially about like the way I look and how I'm doing in life at this point. So then I ride the bus and I feel better. Do that. If you're ever having a bad day, find a bus and ride it. Because you'll get on there and you'll look around and be like, I'm doing all right. Yeah. No, the subway helps me so much with my insecurities. So much. It's wild. I sat down on the subway one time next to this Hasidic man. And before I continue on with this story, I just want to let you all know that I am Jewish. So everything I'm about to say is fine. Okay? Another thing you should know is I'm from Kentucky. And in Kentucky, we don't have Hasidic Jews. That's not a thing. It's the curly Q Jews, by the way. I don't know if you guys know. We don't have them. So when I moved to New York and I saw them, I got all excited and I called my friends back home in Kentucky and I was like, you guys, they have extreme Jews here. But what my friends were picturing was not a Hasidic Jew. My friends were picturing just like a guy going skydiving while wearing a yarmulke. They're picturing a guy who's like, extreme Jew. You know, a guy who's like, I actually don't need a parachute. I have a talit. So an important rule to know for Hasidic Jews is it's this thing called shomer nagia, and it means that they're not allowed to touch members of the opposite sex if they're not related or married. So I sat down on the subway next to this Hasidic man. And as I sat down, the train rocked, and then I accidentally brushed up against him. And then he intentionally recoiled away. He got as far away as he possibly could and started praying under his breath in Hebrew. That's the sexiest I've ever felt. Hands down. I was like, oh, I'm gonna violate a man's religion today. Still got it, you know? I love public transportation. I do hate flying. That's like a thing I have to do a lot for comedy is fly. I think part of why I hate it so much is I usually fly Southwest. Do you guys fly Southwest or you're doing well? It's tough, man. I fly it because it's a good deal, right? If you're not familiar, on Southwest, you get 2 free checked bags. The only catch is you'll never see them again. It's the most expensive way to take out the trash, actually. So you pack it up and you buy a ticket. If you've ever asked the question, can an airline have clinical depression? Southwest is here to answer, yeah, we sure can. I can't think of any other explanation for them because they act like me trying to get out of a party where they'll be like, I'm sorry, guys, but I think I'm gonna cancel. And you're like, why? What's wrong? And they're like, oh, nothing really. It's far. I don't feel like going. I was on the phone one time with Southwest customer service, and the woman on the other end was trying to make polite small talk with me while she waited for her Windows 98 to reboot or whatever. So she asked me, she said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a professional comedian. But what she heard me say was, I'm a professional Canadian. And then she just accepted that. That's how much they've seen. Everybody who works there has been there too long and seen too much. Because the only follow-up question she had was, what are the hours as a Canadian? I didn't know. Good God. I travel a lot. It worries my parents. I think that I travel so much by myself. So the last time I went and saw my parents, my mom got me pepper spray, which is fine. I love that. But the pepper spray she got me is covered in rhinestones. Don't do that. Don't bedazzle my weapons. I don't need it. Because the only people who are ever going to see that pepper spray are me and my attacker. And like, I'm not dressing for him. He wouldn't appreciate the patchwork. What's the scenario where that plays out, right? Like what, some guy comes up and attacks me and I'm ready for it and I pull out my pepper spray covered in rhinestones and then he's like, cute. I love that. Where did you get it? I'll put it in my kill kit. That's so cute. My mom worries about me because she watches too much news, and I think it's clouded her perspective of the world. Which, like, I don't know. I mean, she has a point. The world feels bad right now, right? Doesn't it feel worse than it used to? Okay. Do you guys ever think maybe things wouldn't feel so bad if we had all just forwarded those emails to our 10 friends? Yeah, like we were supposed to. You know what I mean? We were specifically instructed. Okay, some of you are hot and young. Basically what happened is in the late 90s, we got the internet, which was like such an exciting time. But we didn't really know what to do with it because we couldn't watch porn yet. So while we waited for that technology to advance, we sent chain emails to everybody. And they were like, they varied, right? Some of them had fun facts, some of them had inspirational quotes, but at the bottom, they were all the same. At the bottom, they all got very dark and threatening. They said, forward this to 10 friends, or you'll have 7 years of bad luck. And then they didn't say which 7 years were gonna be bad luck. So we might just be paying off our debts from the 90s right now. I don't know. I'm not saying causation or correlation because I don't know what those words mean. I'm just saying it explains why the baby boomers are fine. Because they forwarded those emails to everybody, didn't they? Everybody. I think my parents worry less about me now because I'm married now, which feels crazy to say. It feels so grown up, but I am married. Clap if you're married in here. Okay, all right. Tell me if you guys do this too, because my husband and I are out of things to talk about. We are. It's why I'm here. So what my husband and I do to spice things up, and I'm curious if any of you do this too, is he and I, we like to make up scenarios. And then we ask each other, would you stay with me in that scenario? Yeah, do it. Everybody do it with your significant other. If you're not, it's the hottest way to get into a fight. I cannot recommend it enough. Like one time my husband asked me, would I stay with him if he realized he was trans? And my immediate answer was yes, of course, which surprised him. So I had to explain, first, he's more than just a body to me, right? He's a whole human being. I love him for who he is. Divorce is expensive. And second, I had to explain to him that my least favorite thing about him is that he's a man. Like, he has great qualities, but I've never been psyched that he was a dude. Do you know what I mean? Okay, I can feel some of you pulling away. I feel it. I get it. I think there's this really boring debate happening right now in this country where people have gotten really obsessed over these definitions of how do you define a man or how do you define a woman. And the reason I find it so boring is I think it's okay that we all have different definitions, right? That's fine. If you define a man as somebody who has a penis, I honestly think that's fine. It's just not how I define a man. Right? I define a man as somebody who does something where then you're like, hey, why would you ever think to do that? Like, what was the thought process behind the action you just took? An example, you ask? Sure. You got it. Last week, our dog threw up on the carpet, and then my husband cleaned it up using a dustpan and brush. That's the most man thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, here's how I know it's something only a man would do, is I can see you guys. And when I said that, I saw what happened, which was a lot of women looked back at me like, ew, gross, I can't believe he did that. And a lot of men looked back at me like, I don't get it. I don't know what he was supposed to use, I'm gonna be honest. Paper towels. It's fine. The first time my husband ever heard me tell that story on stage, he got so defensive. Because he was like, that wasn't last week. I love my husband. I'm pro-husband. My husband is he's older than I am too. You know, like it's not nasty. Like the way I said it, it came off. It's not that bad, right? He's older than I am, but you wouldn't look at us together and be like, oh, she doesn't talk to her dad. Like, it's not that bad. Our age gap, when we met, he was 34 and I was 25, which I honestly didn't think anything of at the time. But on my 34th birthday, I distinctly remember blowing out my candles, looking up at him, and realizing, oh, you creep. What was he doing with me? That's so gross. Because would I date a 25-year-old guy now at this point in my life? Absolutely not. So gross. I think it's because 25-year-old guys are bad at everything. Like, I'm sure you have, like, life skills or whatever, but, like, sexually, they're bad at everything, right? There's not a single 25-year-old guy who's, like, good at eating pussy. They're all so bad at it. 25-year-old guys are so bad at eating pussy. They are. And if you're 25 and you're in here and you're like, I'm the exception, there are zero exceptions. You know why? It's not their fault. It's not at all their fault. It's because it's not an experience thing, it's an attitude thing, right? 25-year-old guys, when they go down on a lady, they're doing it to check it off a list and then be like, I'm a feminist. And that's great, but the reason it gets so much better when men get older, like when they get to be in their 40s and up, the reason it's so much better is because those guys, they're eating pussy so that they don't die alone. And that is so much better. Truly, they're eating pussy with fear and terror. And that is what makes me come. If I see the whites of your eyes, it's over. You know what I mean? Thanks. That's the woo of a sated older lady. That's interesting. My husband and I, we've been talking about having kids a lot lately, which is so wild to think that I'm old enough to do that. Not only am I old enough to have kids, I'm running out of time. I'm at the age where I keep getting asked if I'm gonna freeze my eggs, and I keep having to explain that I can barely afford eggs. Right, my husband and I, we don't have kids right now, or a dustpan and brush anymore because we had to throw it away, but I have to say, this is so embarrassing to admit, but a big thing that's stopping me from having kids is I don't want to have a boy. And you're not supposed to say that. I'm well aware. When somebody asks you, what do you want to have, boy or girl? You're supposed to say, I don't care, as long as they're healthy. But I've given it a lot of thought, and I would rather have a sick girl. Would fully rather have a frail, sickly daughter than a strong, healthy son. I'm not trying to be insensitive. It's not that I hate men, right? I don't hate men at all. I know I give off that vibe because I have a few jokes about it and a nose ring, but I don't hate men. The reason I don't want to have a boy, one, is because I don't know what, boy issues are. You know what I mean? I don't know where that's coming from. I know where girl issues are coming from. I understand it's society, but I don't know boy issues. And I know men have issues because I've read the comments they leave on my videos. But I don't know where it comes from. The other reason I don't want to have a boy is because when you give birth to a boy in this country, one of the first questions that the doctor asks you as the mother is, do you want to circumcise him? And sorry, but that's a crazy decision that I now have to make for somebody I just met. I don't know his name yet, okay? And you want me to figure out what to do with his dick? It feels like college all over again. Yeah. I think I'm supposed to just circumcise my son because I'm Jewish and that's what we do. Right? It's not all we do. We do other things too, but that's one of the things. We do it because God promised Abraham to protect him and his descendants if him and his male descendants would get circumcised. And I know, that makes God sound like the most toxic girlfriend. I know I'm not the first person to point this out, but the Old Testament is full of God being very petty and insecure, just going up to every guy asking for sacrifice after sacrifice. And you're like, where does this end? Jesus Christ. Okay. Really? That one's fun because it's a thinker, but it's so dumb. Sometimes I tweet my jokes, and I tweeted out a bunch of jokes about circumcision one time because I was trying to work out this circumcision bit, chunk, snippet. I don't know. I wrote 3 puns for you. And I tweeted, okay, here's one of the jokes that I tweeted. It got me in so much trouble. I tweeted, I would circumcise my son because, he ruins my body, I ruin his. Yeah. And then a lot of people sent me a lot of pictures I did not ask for. It was a wild day on the internet for me. People got mad at me. On the internet? What? Yeah, people got really mad at me for that joke. I didn't know this when I tweeted it because I had never really given it that much thought, but there are people who are very anti-circumcision. And I get it. I understand their reasons, but they were really mean to me when they explained them. They were so mean to me. Just so you know, there's a community of people. They found each other and then they found my mentions. They call themselves intactivists. And that's objectively hilarious. That is such good writing. I love it. But they were so mean to me, I call them foreskin heads. I know, I'm a better writer. I don't know what to tell you. When you have kids, I think it's super important to figure out what you're going to name them and really think about what you're going to name them, because my parents messed up, dude. I don't know how to pronounce my own name. I don't. Everybody my whole life has said it differently, so I just don't know what to do anymore. Because, Jews say my name one way, which is Ariel. But my dad is Spanish, and Spanish people say it Ariel. But I grew up in Kentucky, and they say it Earl. When I was 12 or 13, the TV show My Name is Earl came out. And I was like, mine too, honestly. Well, because I was so excited to not be compared to the Little Mermaid for once, because that's really the conversation I would always have when I introduced myself to people, where I would say, hi, I'm Ariel, nice to meet you. And then they would say, oh my gosh, like the Little Mermaid? I panicked and I was like, no, like the former Prime Minister of Israel. And then they said, hey, why are you like this? My dad, oh, by the way, my dad is Spanish. He's also Jewish. That confuses people sometimes, and then I have to explain that Spain used to have Jews, and then they expelled them all, and some of them stayed Jewish, and that's my dad, right? Spain, this is a fun fact. The country of Spain has no idea how many Jews they expelled during the Inquisition. And I read that and I was like, well, yeah, maybe you would know how many Jews you expelled if you hadn't gotten rid of all of the accountants. Feels like an unforced error on your part a bit. Are there enough Jews in here for that to be fun for everybody? Do they intentionally sit you guys together? That feels not great. Okay. Spain passed this law where if you could prove that your ancestors were kicked out during the Inquisition, you could get Spanish citizenship. So I did that. I have Spanish citizenship because I think it's so important to have a backup plan. And that's not really hyperbole because I got my Spanish citizenship. I took my oath on January 6, 2021. I swear, that was my morning. I took my oath, and here's the thing. It had been a really long process, and I didn't know what was gonna happen later that day, so I celebrated January 6th. I threw myself a little party. I took a picture of myself being really happy, and then I posted it to social media. It was 3 hours before the insurrection. I didn't know what was gonna happen. And if that was the end of the story, fine. But social media does this thing where they like to give you memories. So now, every January 6th, I just get a reminder of how happy I looked on January 6th. And the caption that I wrote does not help, okay? The caption that I wrote was, "Today we have righted one of history's greatest injustices." My bad. See, social media is a lie. It's a weird time to be Jewish right now. I don't know. I'm not just gonna gloss over everything that's happening in the world. It's weird. It's a hard time to be Jewish. It's also a really hard time to be Muslim. There was a study that came out that showed that anti-Semitic attacks are on the rise. But that same study found that anti-Muslim attacks are also on the rise. And that, for me, was such a reminder of how much Jews and Muslims have in common. And I really do, genuinely, I look forward to the day that we figure out how to take all of this energy that we spend fighting each other and figure out how to put it aside and come together to defeat the Christians. We got to stop fighting over Jerusalem and take over the Christian Holy Land, which is, as I understand it, Applebee's on a Sunday after church. That's where you gather. Okay, and if you are Christian, I'm just kidding. No, I think Christianity is totally fine in theory. I think it's Where I grew up, all of my friends were Christian. All of them. And I do have a genuine fondness and jealousy for Christians and Christianity. I think Christians are so much better at celebrating holidays than Jews are. It's no contest. Christians are so good at putting a positive spin on a story that Jews can't do. Passover and Easter happen at the same time. And at Easter, all of my Christian friends were so upbeat and excited, right? They were like, our Lord has risen. And I was like, our bread hasn't. By the way, it's crazy to me that Easter is a happy holiday for Christians. That's how you know that they're good at putting a positive spin on a bad story. The story of Easter is that Jesus died and then 3 days later came back to life. That's a tragedy turned into a horror story. But Christians saw that, and instead of being like, it's the zombie apocalypse, they saw it and they were like, pastels. Yeah, that's what we're doing with this information. We're doing pastels and chocolate eggs. Easter, so fun, shouldn't be. Passover, not fun, also shouldn't be. Passover, man, okay, so for those of you who don't know, on Passover we eat matzah, and matzah is this flat, stale, tasteless bread. And we eat it to celebrate one of our most important holidays. It sucks. And trying to find matzah in Kentucky, what a struggle. I live in New York now. In New York, it's so easy. If you want kosher food in New York, you get an entire Brooklyn for that. In Kentucky, when you needed kosher food, you went to Kroger, you got half an aisle, and you shared it with all the Goya products. So ironic. Goy is in the name. I remember going one year, I was trying to find matzah at Kroger. I couldn't find, I didn't know where the kosher aisle was. I'm wandering the aisles for 40 years trying to find this. And a man who worked at Kroger saw me searching and stopped me and he said, hey, can I help you? And I said, yeah, do y'all have any matzah? And then he said, huh. Matzah. What are you using it for? And I realized, this man does not know what matzah is, but he's too embarrassed to ask, so he's trying to use context clues. But you guys have spent enough time with me at this point to know I'm not great at making people feel comfortable. So when he said, matzah, what are you using it for? I said, to honor my ancestors. And credit to him, he goes, we don't have that. Our holidays aren't as fun as Christian holidays. Our miracles are not as good as Christian miracles. No contest. Guys, the first Christian miracle I ever learned was that Jesus turned water into wine. It's so fun. I love that. That sounds like a frat guy made it up. That just sounds like some guy was like, what if the water got us drunk? That's so fun. It makes sense because Jesus has frat guy vibes. You know what I mean? He was barefoot all the time. He had 12 guys with him wherever he went. And he hung out with one slut. And that's a frat guy. I know that guy. He's an AE Pi. I hooked up with him. So that's the first Christian miracle I learned. Great miracle. The first Jewish miracle all of my friends learned was the miracle of Hanukkah. The miracle of Hanukkah sucks. It's not a good miracle. It's super lame. The miracle of Hanukkah, what we're actually celebrating, is that the oil lasted for 8 days when it was only supposed to last for 1 day. Ta-da! God, I hate that miracle. First of all, I don't believe in that miracle because men wrote that down, and men are always lying saying it lasted longer than it really did. Second of all, what a terrible miracle for Jews to celebrate, that the oil lasted for 8 days when it was only supposed to last for 1 day. Because to me, that just sounds like we're celebrating that we got a deal on oil. Feels like we're reinforcing a stereotype. I don't like it. I hate it. And like, okay, some Jewish stereotypes are true, for sure, absolutely. On the count of 3, everybody say what you think it is. 1, 2, no, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Are you insane? No. That's just fun to see who in the audience is like, my time to shine, all right. No, it's a positive stereotype. We have a lot of doctors. That's true. There is a disproportionate number of doctors who are Jewish. I learned that stereotype was true when I moved to New York and I went to a Jewish funeral. The Jewish funeral, it was very crowded, it was very sad. And at the funeral, there was a woman who fainted. And then the person next to her yelled out, "Is there a doctor?" Yeah. Yeah, there is. They yelled back. They were like, "What specialty do you need?" You know what? It was like going up to a bunch of golden retrievers and yelling, "Jake!" Like, they're coming. They'll come down. Disproportionate number. They'll come. It was a real culture shock for me when I moved to New York, because New York, it's such a Jewish place, and I didn't know how Jewish it was gonna be, but it's so Jewish. When we moved into our apartment, there was already a mezuzah on the doorway. A mezuzah, if you don't know, is a little tiny scroll, and we put it on our doorway. And it's supposed to protect us and also let the Jehovah's Witnesses know to not even bother. Super powerful. And my parents are not from Kentucky, and so I don't think they understood what it meant to raise kids there as Jews. Because when I was in high school, my parents sat me down and they said, "Hey, we know you're gonna start dating soon, and we just wanna let you know that whoever you're into, whether you're into boys or girls or anyone in between, it doesn't matter to us. As long as they're Jewish." In Kentucky, they said that to me. As long as they're Jewish in Kentucky. That leaves exactly 2 people. It's my dad or my brother. Those are the choices. Which in Kentucky is fine, but... they're not my type. I don't know. They're my blood type, but they're my type. I was like the only Jew of my friend group. And I think this goes for anybody who grows up the only one of anything in any group, is you get people saying weird things to you, and then you just gotta absorb it. When I was in school, I wore a Jewish star necklace, a little Star of David. And I remember one day, this girl in my class saw it, and she said, "Does that mean that you're Jewish?" And I said, "Yes." And then she said, "A real live Jew?" I was just like, "Yeah, babe, he didn't get all of us." But I couldn't even be mad at her because I was truly the first Jewish person she had ever seen. That's why she said that. She could not believe it. It wasn't said with hate or malice, so I couldn't be mad. She said it with awe, like she had just gotten so lucky that she said it as if she was like, okay, yeah, I guess I only have 2 wishes left. So, can't be mad at that person. The person I got mad at was, every now and then one of my friends would tell me, they were like, you shouldn't be Jewish. Like, that means you're going to hell. You should be Christian. And I tried to play along. I wanted to be accepted. So I said, okay, what do I have to do to be Christian? And they were like, okay, whenever you're about to do something, just ask yourself, like, what would Jesus do? And I was like, he'd be Jewish. But, like, I know where they were coming from. They were coming from a place of love, right? They really thought I was going to hell. They wanted to save me. The first time I ever heard that, the first time somebody ever told me I was going to hell, it was wild. I was in middle school, and my friend came up to me, and she said, Earl. Do you guys remember from before? She said, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but we learned in Sunday school that because you're a Jewish, it means you're going to hell. And I was like, oh, wow. You think about me on the weekends? That's awesome. That's cool. You guys are cool. Thank God. Whew. Yeah, no, I've done some terrible shows. This isn't one of them. Done some really terrible shows. I'll tell you, the worst show I ever did, I did a show in New Jersey, which don't... And at the show, it wasn't going great, and then this woman started heckling me, and she and I got into a big back and forth. And then as she and her husband were getting kicked out, her husband threw a full can of beer at me that it whizzed right by me, landed right next to me. And then I don't know, I picked up the beer and I chugged the rest of it. Yeah. I posted a video of that. And that video went pretty viral. It changed my life, honestly. Like, it went, like, actually, I fly Delta now. Like, that's how much it changed my life. I got so many reactions to that. My favorite was when people asked, they were like, how did you think to just pick up the beer and drink it? And I was like, oh, I have a drinking problem. I saw a free drink and I took it. I went to college in New Orleans. Okay, this woman, she was heckling me because she figured out from one of my jokes that I voted for Joe Biden. And we're not going to get too into politics because I don't think that's what we're here for, but I do want to say that it genuinely sucks to have taken a beer can for Joe Biden. You get that, right? Because he's not a cool person, right? Like, Beyonce is who I would gladly dive in front of a beer can for. Beyonce, I would take an insurrection for Beyonce at this point. Not Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the Jason Derulo of politics. Because nobody's like, yeah, that's my number one guy. But if it's on, it's fine. Not Joe Biden. To her credit, she was right. I did vote for him. I voted for him because I loved that he was tired. Obsessed with that. I think that's a great quality for the president I think every world leader should be 90 and exhausted. I want them to be too tired to put us in danger. That's what I'm looking for in my leaders. Because think about it. There's so much stuff that happens that we as civilians will never find out about. So I truly believe it's possible that there was a night where Joe Biden was going to press the nuclear button, but then it got late. And we all get another day, you know? Like, I do not agree with every decision Joe Biden has made. I disagree with a lot of his decisions, but I take comfort in knowing that for every decision he made, he slept on it. So this beer can video, it happened a while ago. Like, it's been a minute. And there is part of me that feels like I should be over it by now, like that I shouldn't still be talking about it. But the truth is, I think about that night all the time. I do. I think about it so much because those two people who did that, they're terrible people, but they're a great couple. And I can't stop thinking about the true love I saw that night. Sometimes I lie in bed at night replaying that event. And I just keep thinking about how she started the fight and then her husband finished the fight. And then I roll over in bed and see my husband and I'm like, oh, I don't think he would do that for me. Like, they're terrible people, but I want what they have. You don't see that very often, right? Like a couple who finishes each other's sentences in prison. What if I dedicated this special to them? That was so funny. In my special thank yous. Man. Okay, here's the joke I told that got her mad at me. I'm a very insecure person. Very insecure about my body. It's something I'm working on, but I realized that my insecurities had gotten out of hand when I went to get an IUD. And if you don't know what an IUD is, you guys seem cool, but if you're visiting, an IUD is birth control that goes in you, and then it gets you through 2 administrations. And my doctor, as she was putting in my IUD, she stopped halfway through and she said, hey, I know this is gonna be surprising for you, but you actually have a very narrow canal, and it's so narrow, we almost couldn't do this procedure. And I was like, stop. That's so nice, thank you. And she was like, it's a medical condition, Ariel. And I was like, oh, I should get help. The IUD that I have is called Mirena. And I would not get that one again if I were to do it over again. Because one of the side effects of Mirena is that I no longer get my period. And I hate that side effect. I know that sounds crazy, but I hate it. Because one reason is we really can sync up our periods. That's like a thing we do, and I love that. I think that's so cool. It feels very like I'm part of a coven. It feels very witchy. Bonus, it freaks men out that we can do it, as if they don't all constantly have diarrhea, but whatever. Two, the other reason I miss getting my period is I struggle with depression. And sometimes it was nice to have just accomplished one thing in a day. That's the feel. If you've never had a period before, it's the same feeling that you get whenever you pay rent, right? Because it happens once a month, hopefully on time. Right? Otherwise, somebody's getting evicted. It's an abortion joke. This is one of like 7 states I can still tell it, you know? I love my gynecologist. She's the best. The first time I went to her, it was because I was having trouble with adult acne. And then she was like, hey, that's not cute. It's herpes. You have to call it herpes, okay? It's not as clever as you think that you're calling it adult acne. Also, you have adult acne. Okay, and I feel some of you pulling away. Statistically, 1 in 5 of you should be very with me right now, just so we're clear. My husband does not have herpes. He likes me to say that. And when we first met, I was very open with him from the jump. I was like, hi, I'm Ariel. I have herpes. And he was like the former Prime Minister of Israel? So he was cool with it, but he did have questions. And I think that's totally fair. He asked me, okay, if you have herpes, does this mean that we should use a condom every time we have sex? And I was like, yeah. Or you could get it. You're 40, live a little. But otherwise, yes, that's what that means. And then he said, oh man, that sucks. Sex without a condom feels so much better. And I was like, yeah, I know. That's how I got herpes. Yeah. It's one of those things, herpes, it sounds much worse than it is, right? I feel like it wouldn't sound nearly as bad if it wasn't plural. Like if I was up here and I was like, I have a herp, you'd be like, oh my God, that's adorable. What is that? I love that. But we don't talk about it, so there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of misinformation, right? One time this woman after a show came up to me and she said, you don't really have herpes, do you? And I was like, yeah, this isn't a cute thing I'm making up to get guys. And then she said, that's so gross. I used the bathroom after you. And I was like, wait, babe, how do you pee? Do you go around the rim? Don't do that. Because that's the only way you're going to get it from me on a toilet seat. Wild. I do actually know who I got herpes from. That's a very rare thing because herpes is so common, but I know I got it from an ex-boyfriend. And I know he called me up because he heard that I was talking about it on stage. And he said, he called me up, he goes, I think it's so disgusting. That's what he sounds like, I don't know. So I think it's so disgusting that you're talking about herpes on stage. I was like, wait, how are you going to tell me it's disgusting when you're the one who gave it to me? And he goes, yeah, but I don't talk about it. And I was like, yeah, I know. That's how I got herpes. I wish that herpes were the cause of my insecurities, because that would be like a legitimate reason. It's not. I'm just a woman existing, and so that's what happened. Man, I hate that this is a real thing that I'm about to say. I am trying to lose weight. Basically what happened was 2 weeks ago, I accepted my body, and then 1 week ago, I unaccepted it. It's just body image stuff. I struggle with it. Everybody struggles with it. I know that everybody. It doesn't matter what you look like. You've struggled with body image. Right? I used to work with this woman who was really tiny and skinny in this way that I never will be. Right? We're just built differently. I'm built like this. She had little Florida Methodist hips. Do you know what I mean by that? I don't think you know. She's not built to survive. And that is my goal. She's built where you're like her ancestors were never kicked out of anywhere. That's how she's built. which is not how I am built. I know that. I'm built for the old country, right? I'm Jewish on both sides. I'm built for if the ox died, I could pull the cart. That applause hurts. Don't clap at that one. So this woman I work with, I was complaining to her one day, which I don't like to complain. I love to. And I turned to her and I said, ugh, I would kill for your body. And then she turned to me and she said, oh my gosh, no, I would kill for your body. Which, what a moment, right? No, truly, for me, that was such an epiphany, like the little light bulb went off, because I never realized before that skinny people are dumb and wrong. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. No, we're all doing our best. I get so many toxic thoughts about my body, and I'm trying to be better about it, but they just pop in. I got food poisoning one time. And my first thought when I got food poisoning was, I can't wait to weigh myself. That's awful. That's a terrible, toxic thought 3 pounds, but that's a terrible I got food poisoning from eating raw oysters, okay? I eat a lot of oysters because I like to gamble, but not in casinos. I like a real life gamble. That's what oysters are. Raw oysters will either give you food poisoning or they make you horny. And that's a boom or bust situation if I've ever heard one. One time, my husband and we went out for oysters, and I was trying to be cute and quirky and funny. So I ate an oyster, and then I turned to my husband, and I said, okay, you know what this means, baby. Tonight, we're either going to have sex, or I'm going to shit myself. And then without skipping a beat, he said, or both, that's what marriage is. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's how I know I married the right guy. That's support. My husband, man, you guys would love him. He's so nice. He's the nicest guy I've ever met. Here's how sweet he is we've been watching Gossip Girl at night just to calm down. And as we're watching Gossip Girl, he keeps saying over and over, I can't believe they're doing all this on a school night. So sweet. He's so nice. I truly believe that if he and I were hooking up and I got food poisoning in the middle of it, like if he and I were hooking up and I shit myself in the middle, I don't think he would be mean to me about it. Isn't that why? I know, it's so sweet. I don't think he would make fun of me or like bring it up in a fight later on. I think he would just quietly go get the dustpan and brush. Thank you guys so much. As you may have heard, I got a beer can thrown at me. So we're going to do a little callback / putting a period on this whole experience, which is they are going to gently toss a beer can at me. It was actually a High Noon, but they didn't sponsor me, so it's a beer can. Good night. time. Okay.